Rock Solid Families wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home. Welcome to Rock Solid Families Podcast. This is Merrill Hutchinson along with my Summer of Love guest and partner. I guess you're not my guest, are you? Linda Hutchinson. Hey, Miss Linda, babe. How are you?
Summer. I don't think I'm your Summer of Love partner because I don't ride bikes with you. I think that
nobody rides bikes with me.
Oh, you have Summer of Love partners with the bike riders.
But they're men, and that's a whole different conversation. I don't think we should open up that can of worms. Let's just keep bike riding, okay, and love stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So,
yeah.
I think it's a title I'm up for,
What, Summer of Love?
No, you're Summer of Love partner.
Oh, partner? But that sounds like it's just the season of love. So when summer's over, you kind of like, see, that was a great trip.
Then we'll have the.
That's almost like an affair. Maybe we should shift gears on that.
Anyway, if you missed part 1 of our Summer of Love series, we highly recommend you go back and listen. It was all about really getting a snapshot of where your marriage is at currently, and does it pass the test, or is it slowly fading away and disconnecting? And so our goal of part 1 was really to help you get an evaluation of the health and the strength of your marriage.
On a regular basis, hon, you and I see, and we've even experienced it in our own marriage, that time can just sort of make you very complacent.
Yep.
And, we see it in marriages. It's the nature of all of us. If the car is running well, it doesn't grab my attention to say, oh, I better check some of the maintenance stuff. I better check the oil. Like, no, it's running fine. So when things run well, we tend to ignore them and go to things that are drawing our attention. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And marriages do that all the time.
Yeah.
And so, what we really started to talk about last week was we did the assessment, we did the checkup. And I think it's worth noting too, that's not a full overhaul rebuild. No. That's not what it was meant to do. It's a checkup. It's like, hey, these are some major, like in a car, you have your major systems, electric systems, transmission systems, you've got cooling systems, you've got major systems. And so you better check those now and then before you get in trouble.
Yeah, you don't want to wait till the light goes on, right? That's our daughter's method of her car.
Yeah.
It's like, you mentioned recently, asked her if she's had her oil change, and she kind of looked at you like,
she's like, what oil?
Am I supposed to do something about that?
Yeah.
Which honestly, I'm just going to be honest, and if my dad's listening, he'll know that I got a brand new car when I turned 16, and no one told me about oil changes. And it wasn't until 10,000 miles later that he's asking me if I did, and I had no idea you changed oil. So, so again, you may be listening and think, well, our marriage is fine. We got married, we love each other. What's the big deal? And so, we gave you a little screener last week, and it's attached to the show notes. So if you don't have time to listen to the whole show, you can at least grab that screener and give you and your partner a chance to kind of answer that, to kind of assess. It's not a scientific tool, but a little bit of a general health checkup of where you're at and what areas may need some tune-ups.
Yeah. And so, it's better to, we could spend a little bit of time and energy to do something now just to sort of bring it back into line versus the rebuild that may be coming down the road because we let the maintenance go for so long. And man, like when people start to get hurt, we're keeping this in the line of cars. Well, you had a new car when you were young.
Yes,
I have had many beaters.
Yes, you have.
And so the longer you drive a beater, it becomes accustomed to you. Like you have to do, it'll keep driving, but you've got to do certain things to keep it going. Like people don't realize, oh no, when you're going to start it, you got to turn the key a little bit like this, or you got to pump the gas like this. And so we keep tweaking it to make it go. And if somebody else sees it from the outside, they're going, I don't know how that's working.
Do you remember when our oldest son bought himself a classic truck, and his wife was just so frustrated because he literally had to be parked on a hill because that's how it started. It had to roll down the hill. We had to
roll start that thing. It's just a small little modification, but it still runs great. And again, that's what marriages can start to do when you just sort of do whatever you can to tweak it to run. And again, like, sometimes those things happen. And but man, if there's some maintenance that we can do. And so today, the specific area we're going to talk about is going to be, and we put this first for a reason. This is going to be the area of communication, okay? And we've done many shows on communication, but again, today we're going to actually talk about, well, how do I really know what to look for if to see whether we're having communication breakdowns? Some of them are obvious, like we can't do anything without a conflict or argument, okay? But sometimes we're just missing the great opportunity to go in and touch base a little bit better. And instead we just turn the other way and we dismiss it, and we don't realize the damage that can create.
Or you may be an avoider, and I just had this in my office this week.
If you're not, my hands are up.
Yeah, there's two avoiders. There was two avoiders in my office, and so they would say, like, we rarely fight. But they're not having hard conversations either.
Right,
they're not resolving conflict. It's just getting stuffed. And so they get angry and angrier and more frustrated. And so eventually you fade away, and there's a rupture in the relationship, whether it be an affair or something serious. Then you're like, wow, how did we get there? We don't hardly fight. Well, that's where communication can come in. And so that's what we're going to be doing today. And we're going to dig into one of the greatest complaints we get from couples all the time is we don't know how to communicate.
Right. All right, so let's thank some sponsors first. Then let's get into the communication side of the maintenance program, and let's get rolling. So we would like to thank the fine folks at Casey's Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. So thanks to those folks who believe in what we do, and do us a favor and just honor them by doing business with them. They continue to not just support Rock Solid Families, but they support our community well. They think community is very important, and so they pour in so many other different ways well beyond this show.
Yeah. And so last week we talked about the assessment was broken down into 4 areas. And so I just want to remind you quickly of the 4 areas we kind of had you kind of get a little snapshot of in a score. And so there was communication, which we're going to deal with today on this show. Next show is going to be on emotional intimacy and dreaming together.
Right. So the emotional, just so that like the feelings part of things and what stimulates either anger, depression, or happiness and enjoyment, right?
Yeah.
So things that, oh man, makes me look forward to it.
Yeah. Spiritual or physical intimacy will be the next week in part 3.
You're right. Yeah. Okay.
And then the last one we'll do is spiritual intimacy.
Right.
And so actually that would be part 5. So this is part 2, actually. Last week was part 1. And so again, if you have not listened to week 1, part 1, go back and do an assessment.
Yeah. On the assessment, you can actually see you're going to score out each column of scores that you have. And you're going to see that we give you the little score tool there that allows you to see the range, that whether you're in a troubled area or needs a little bit of attention, or you're doing very well. So again, we did this separately, so we can combine all those together and you can get kind of an overall score. But the overall score does not really tell you exactly where you need to work. Like I could drive a car and go, well, overall it's doing okay, but it's not until you look at individual systems where you go, well, this particular system's working a whole lot harder than another system.
The brakes are squeaky. So we're going to break down some rules of engagement that we believe are game changers, hon, when it comes to communicating with your spouse or really anybody significant other, right? And so these are critical communication tools to put in your toolbox to help you communicate clearly and for your partner to feel heard and understood. So I would get a piece of paper, push pause if you're listening to this or watching it, and go get a piece of paper and we'll write down, we're going to give you the 10 key rules of engagement when it comes to communication.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So the very first one, and this sounds so trivial, hun, and people say to us all the time, "Oh, we do that."
Yeah.
And they realize into the conversation, "Oh, we don't really do that."
Yeah.
And the first one is to be intentional about daily conversation and attention to each other. Okay. And so people check in with each other with a, "Hey, how you doing, babe? I'm home from work," whatever. Okay. But to actually be intentional with a, let's check in on how each other is doing. And so part of our practice is that we actually call this the daily check-in. Okay. And really it's a 15-minute time where you are not distracted, which is another huge component, like, because kids can always get in the way, or work, or all these other things. And so we're just going to take some time and we're going to put it on the calendar. And Linda and I, we like to say, make it a set time. Now, it's not going to be perfect all the time, but if you've looked at your schedule and you say, "Hey, things kind of wind down at our house around 7:30 or 8 o'clock, then at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, we're getting an ice water or a tea or whatever, and we're going to sit on the couch, or we're going to sit at the dinner table, and we are going to touch base."
Yeah. We call this the heart check. So it's not so much of what you did today. Okay. We're not like having an interrogation moment. It's how you're doing today. And so that's really where the connection comes from and the intimacy is built, the heart check of how you're doing. And so before you get on your phone and scroll Facebook, or before you turn on the ball game, or before you go in the garage to work on your vehicle, if you have not done this, you're telling your partner all of those other things are more important than you.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that day in and day out.
Yeah, it's important because you're going to think that most days are kind of okay. All right. And it's those days that we're not really too crazily worried about, but it's that 1 or 2 or 3 days occasionally spread out where our partner, when we say, "How are you doing?" under the skin surface, we're saying, "Oh man, they're not doing well. They're tired. They're worried. They're not feeling well. Something is wrong." And if you just glaze over that, you missed a great opportunity to connect with them. And so, for this reason, we actually find out how they are doing.
Yep.
And hun, can I just add to this? You might say, "Well, why don't you just sit down and say, 'Hey, how are you doing?'" Using that phrase. There are some couples who can do that, but I will tell you that men are slow to warm up to talking about how they are feeling about things. If I come up to the average man and just say, "Hey, dude, how you doing?"
Give me a 5-second summary of how you're doing.
I'm going to get a fine. Okay. And so, again, I'm going to pardon my own use of the phrase, but women need foreplay, and we're going to talk about this more with physical intimacy. In other words, they have to be warmed up to the idea of being physically intimate. Men, not so much, okay? But men, really, ladies, you have to hear this. They need more basic, simple conversation of just talking about the day in order for them to start to warm up to the idea of talking a little deeper about, ultimately, comes down to a word called feelings.
Yeah.
But men aren't wired for feelings. In fact, we try to avoid them a lot of times. And so that's why I don't just sit down with a man and say, "How are you doing?" I mean, that might work if they're actually sick and they know they're referencing the illness. But if it's just a general thing, I'm going to talk in generality. "Hey, what'd you do today?" And I'm going to get their read on the things they did. And then I'm going to read like, "Man, you seem tired," or "You seem beat up," or "You seem wore down," whatever it is, because that's the how.
Yes. The research says it takes about 7 to 8 minutes before you get past surface talk. We don't spend 7 or 8 minutes sitting down with many people.
Right.
And so if you want to get past the surface talk of what happened in the day, you got to give it at least 10, 15 minutes. So the second one is to get rid of distractions. And you mentioned this already, but to try to avoid any and all distractions when you're doing your daily check-ins, prioritize that heart check and that time together. The more your partner feels prioritized, the more they feel valued. So it could be the kids that are pulling on your leg and yelling your name. It could be the work that's blowing up your phone and they don't take no for an answer. It could be, your social media that keeps notifying you of all these things. And you feel like, obviously, hun, there's emergencies. If we used to tell the kids, unless there's blood, don't bother us,
And it has to be a lot of blood. No, I'm just teasing people.
And again, we're over exaggerating, but the fact is that your kids need to know, this is so important for them to know that you two and the time you have together is a priority. And they want to see that. Even though they don't like it, they need to see that, I should say.
Yeah. Number 3, I want you to hear this, because if you're new to the idea of starting to communicate well, this is something that will drive you crazy. And that is, number 3 is trust the process and just show that you're invested in it, that you do care about it. What I mean by that is, if you have had a habit building of cutting each other short, dismissing each other, not paying attention to each other, and then all of a sudden tonight you say, oh, tonight we're going to really start this new way, and your spouse kind of steps on your toes, your knee-jerk reaction will be, see, this is never going to work.
Yeah, this doesn't work. Heard that
and
before.
So there are other rules we're going to go through here about how to communicate well, but just the idea of back off, the two of you both learning how to do this well. When something bubbles up in you, like an emotion, like you just got upset or whatever, just back out of it a little bit and allow the process to play out and get comfortable with it.
Yeah, we probably should add in there extend grace, because you aren't going to do this well at first, especially if you've gotten into some bad habits of interrupting or ignoring or avoiding or, and so again, trust the process and show your partner that you care, not letting those past hurts or experiences kind of take over. Number 4 is don't interrupt. And I'm bad at this, and I don't like silence. And so I will
I'm not going to interrupt you or say a thing about this, Linda.
I will fill that space with words. And so please let the other person finish their thoughts, finish their story. Don't interrupt them in an attempt to either trump them with your own story or fix their problems quickly. And that is really important to make a person, especially a person you love, feel heard and understood.
Man, hon, that is such a huge point, because interruption happens, just like you said. A lot of times we have a fear of the silence, but also I want you to think about what happens. If I'm really going to learn to connect with somebody, sometimes I think I'm so important that I have to weigh in on everything. All right. I'm like, my idea has got to be heard. And so as your partner is bringing stuff to you, it will trigger different thoughts. And right away, instead of you paying attention to their continued process of the talking, you are jumping. You just clicked a little switch off, and your brain is now thinking about what your response is going to be. Even if it's not a defense of yourself, it's just like, well, it might be a solution that popped up in your brain. It might be something else. And so now you're no longer tuned in. Again, I'm only tuning in partially to the words. I'm really trying to stay maintaining what I'm seeing in the whole messaging system of body language and tone and facial expressions, all these other things. And so that's why it's just like quiet your mind and just keep on observing. And so for that reason, we just don't interrupt. Just let them finish it out. And at that point, you're just taking it in from what they're giving you.
Yeah. And it's hard with some people, because some people don't take a breath, to even give you a chance to interject. Number 5 is use I statements. This is huge. And this is where the assertiveness comes in. We want you to be assertive, but we don't want you to be condemning and attacking. So use the word I and we instead of you when you're describing feelings and action. That denotes some ownership, okay, and keeps your partner from getting defensive and shutting down on you. And for example, I get lonely when we don't get time together after dinner versus you never make time for me after dinner. And so that use of I statements and being assertive really can help to kind of buffer a hard conversation.
Man, we hear this all the time. You make me mad.
Yes.
Well, I am mad. And then you can state what can prompt that, but I am mad. I'm the one in control or losing control of how I'm actually processing and feeling something.
Yep.
Number 6, actively listen, which we've been talking about throughout this. Actively listen, but then reflect back, okay? And so this is why you can't interrupt All right. This is why you're going to sit back and you're just going to take it in. And this reminds me of our kids, hon, when they read a story and we say, well, what was the story about? They go back and they try to reread the story to you. And you're like, no, I don't want you to reread the story.
Right. Were you listening?
What I want you to do is put the book off to the side and say, tell me in your own words what you think you got out of that. Okay. And so the reflection back is that you're taking in what your partner has been giving you in terms of communication. And then in your own processing, that means you have to internalize it and you got to think it through. And then you go back and say, you know, hon, so it sounds like to me, right? So you'll say those kinds of things. It sounds like to me, or if
what I'm hearing,
what I'm hearing, or if I heard you correctly, it sounds like you are very stressed and upset over what happened to you today. Okay. And it's you're saying it in a questioning sort of way. Well, I don't know for sure. You wouldn't say, oh, you're definitely mad today. I can tell you're mad. No, like, because you have to let that person accurately be who they are.
Yep.
And you don't interject on who you think they are. Okay.
Yep.
And so you're just coming back and you're saying, well, it sounds to me like, right? And when you reflect that back, and now it is going to be their opportunity to either affirm you or redirect you. They might say to you, yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. That's where I'm at today. Or they might say, well, I know I may have come off that way, but really, I'm not really there today. This is kind of where I'm at. And that's where you get the clarification to help direct you.
Yeah, you want to reflect back, hearing not just the words that they said, but also the nonverbals, like their tone, their eye contact, their body posture. Make sure you include the words and the emotions that you read and heard. So what I hear you say is there's nothing wrong, but it sounds like you're sad. Am I hearing that right? And so that's really a way of really saying, I'm trying to reach into that heart. I'm trying to read between the lines, because a lot of times we're hoping that someone just figures it out, that you should be able to read my mind. We've been married. I've heard this so many times. We've been married long enough. They should know. Well, guess what? They don't. And it's not fair for them to have to try to guess. It's important to be assertive, but also actively listen.
If you think that you're on top of something and you recognize, like, maybe you believe in your heart of hearts that they're sad, and you say, man, it seems like you're kind of sad about this. And they go, no, I'm really not. You know, even if they really are sad, you take them for their word.
That's right. They said they are.
They said they are, okay, or they aren't, or whatever. You let it go. You don't go, no, I can tell. Like, I can tell there's something wrong, because they have to be the one in charge of either releasing at the level they want to release or just shutting it down. And maybe it's not the time for them, right? Yeah. So all of us have a different timing where something is more appropriate to release it, okay? But you don't hold them hostage by what you want to believe.
Yeah, that's huge. And that really goes with number 7, hon. Resist the urge to defend yourself or to fix the problem. And so when you reflect back, make sure you do not include a but. Well, you're mad at me, but you didn't know what happened earlier today, or it was because I did this, because that is not going to come back as listening and understanding.
When I work with clients and I make that point about we're not allowed, I will not accept buts and becauses. And it's pretty cool, because once you kind of make that statement to people, they will catch themselves. Yes. I just had someone today and they said, I just said but. And I'm like, well, and so because everybody wants to qualify everything that they do. And sometimes you just don't need to qualify what you do. You just need to kind of lay it out there, and you say, like, I'm sorry that I was a jerk today. Yeah. Versus, I'm sorry I was a jerk today, but it was what you did that made me be a jerk today.
Yeah.
No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're not really sorry if you are putting the but, or I do this because, okay? Just let it hang there. Yeah. That's the ownership of it.
Right. The point is to help your partner feel heard and understood, not to justify or minimize the situation. Own your faults and your shortcomings. No blaming or excuse making. You may not agree with what they said, and you don't have to say you were right. You can just say, what I hear you say is you think I've been a jerk lately, or you think I've been neglecting you lately. Just make sure you heard them right. And then the work is going to be what you do with that information. So that's number 7.
Yeah. Okay. Number 8. Are you ready for this one? So if you were in a fight for your life, okay, then the idea of fighting fair is kind of off the table. If you seriously were in a fight for your life, kicking, biting, screaming, whatever you like. It's like, well,
Yeah,
no.
didn't you have to do that training, that intruder training, and they
Oh,
were
yeah.
just saying like throw whatever?
Oh yeah, like man, it was
Kick him in the
all
privates.
hands on deck and just
Yeah.
privates, whatever we're going to do here.
Yeah.
Because the term fighting fair goes out the door. That's called fighting for survival. Okay, but when we take that operation and move it into somebody that we claim to love, okay, we do have to start to bring in some rules, and this is a fairness, and that's why even within boxing and MMA and wrestling, because we want this to continue along, like we don't want to box to the death, because both of us want to be able to continue to box because we love what we do here, all right? And so we put boundaries and rules in there so that we can all live another day and just continue to do what we love to do. And so that's how we have to actually think about. That's why I don't even like using the word fight in marriage, because fight triggers me to think at all costs I have to win, okay? I don't like to use the word fight. I don't like to use the argument, only because I understand why we use them, but they prompt me to think emotion and at all cost, to win.
Yeah.
And so the idea here is we have to have some rules. And I've been so guilty of this before with you. Like I raised my hand before when I'm an avoider. So face to face, I'm going to avoid the confrontation because Linda is going to be able to outword me. Okay. She's got polished skills on doing that. So I know I'm going to be outmatched with the word part. So I don't really know how to match up. So I back out, but that doesn't mean I forget. And then I start to fight unfairly. I use the passive aggressiveness side of little innuendos, passive aggressiveness, try to get back under her skin, right? And that's when I'm not fighting fair. And she and I are both very aware of this now. And so now I have to catch myself like, man, that is not where I want to be, okay? Yeah. And again, the other side of that could be, if Linda's coming at me with lots of words and screaming and yelling, she knows that's the unfair tool on me, and she knows she's going to shut me down. And so a lot of ladies, I see this more this way, not always, but I see this more. Ladies are better with the word, and so they will right away come at their husband. And most of the time, we have men that are avoiders. And if you're coming at your husband hard with a lot of stuff, it becomes fighting unfair because that's not a tool or weapon that they have well. So you can't attack with the words because they're going to come back and they're going to attack with whatever method they have.
Yeah. Every couple has conflict. I mean, heck, Merle and I had conflict just starting this series. And so, we're not saying you're not going to have conflict. It's how you resolve the conflict and the tools that you have in your toolbox. And so we have a handout attached to this show on the strategies to resolve conflict well and the fighting fouls that we want to avoid. And so, the strategy is kind of what we're talking about today, but part of the fouls that we just want to blow through: name calling, swearing, blaming, accusing, blowing up. Like I have a client who has holes in walls, different walls in the house, getting even, bringing up the past, shutting down, running away, not listening, bullying, pushing, hitting, obviously any physical response when you shove, making excuses or jumping in conclusions, not taking responsibility. There is going to always be, even if it's 5% of the problem, part of where you've got to own your part. Okay. Not saying to be a doormat, but I am saying that conflict takes two. And so part of it is going to be owning your responsibility. So we're just asking you to avoid these fighting fouls.
Yeah, man, those are good. And we've done entire shows and series on those. So those are good. Number 9 is have a time limit on getting things resolved, okay? And so we kind of talk about the 24-hour rule, and you'll hear that frequently, as Scripture even talks about, don't let the sun go down, on your temper. The idea that before that head hits the bed, you want to make sure you get this resolved. And again, like just depending on when everything takes place, if it takes place at 1 o'clock in the morning, or when somebody's traveling or away from you, or maybe you're just both exhausted already when things start to percolate. Okay, so, but you got 24 hours. And the reason, guys, that we want to resolve this in 24 hours is because if you don't resolve it, what you will do, we've done an entire show on, you will make a decision on whether to store this in the back of your mind, Okay, I'm just not even going to bring it up because it's not worth the energy, not going to go down there, but I'm not going to forget it. And so you'll store it, and it becomes a seed of resentment that grows. And then all of a sudden, months down the road, something triggers that, and you've got compounded problems because now it's you just added fertilizer to the thing that you planted, months ago.
That's the stuffer and the avoider.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we are going to put a specific, no, let's get this done. And that means sometimes both of you going back and forth and kind of falling on the sword. I'm not, and how you mentioned this is actually in the list of strategies. And it's we have to win for us, not win for me. Okay. Yeah. And so that means you start to say, listen, how can we get some good resolve?
Yeah. So make sure you get clarity on what they said. Share with them how you feel in an honest, respectful way. Like what you just said really hurt me. Okay. So I feel disrespected when you do this. Okay. And so that's really those I statements. When we let hurt and anger fester, it turns into bitterness and resentment. And then it goes even to unforgiveness and hate, right? And that unresolved anger can manifest itself really in physical and spiritual ways. We can get sick to our stomach when we're dealing with unforgiveness or resentment. We can have that anxiety and depression, that hopelessness. It's all because we didn't resolve conflicts, whether it be with your spouse or a coworker or a friend or a parent. It's definitely something that has repercussions down the road.
All right. So we're jumping into our number 10 on the communication, closeness, and intimacy. Okay. Hun, I'm going to have you explain this because I think you get this. I mean, I get this completely. We talk about it all the time, but you get this a lot when, because you bring things to God quickly and you understand that. And so this 10th thing, we've talked about so many times with couples. What's number 10?
It's my favorite one. And it's honestly the greatest tool in our toolbox. It's pray together with your spouse on a regular basis. So the best tool, less than 1% of couples, it's 0.001% of couples who pray together on a regular basis divorce. And I know it can be awkward. It was awkward at first for us if you're not used to it. But can I tell you, it's a whole lot easier and cheaper than going through a divorce or a separation. I have so many couples that will push back on this. I'll hear prayer's just really personal for me, or I'm not a prayer kind of person, or, I believe in God, but, I don't think it's that important. And I'm like, why would you not? That doesn't cost you a dime.
Right.
And it is such an intimacy builder. It is such a communication tool to draw your partner in, to connect with them on an emotional, a spiritual, a physical communication level, that it is such a great idea. It's worth the try. And, it's hard to be mad. It's hard to lie to your partner when you are praying with them on a regular basis.
And guys, it's a skill. Okay, it's a skill, and some of us are natural with certain skills and some of us are not. But all of us, even through mechanical practice, can become more and more natural. And so the biggest thing that we hear when we encourage couples to pray together is they say it feels awkward. And one of them or both of them will be people who just don't like to hear the prayer out loud. They want to keep it private. And the idea here is we use this question all the time: how coachable are you? If you're coachable only because you're doing the easy things that I've told you to do, that doesn't mean you're easily coachable. Coachability means you do things that are uncomfortable. And you do them because you believe that they're going to produce good things. And so you go into that gym or onto that field or whatever, and you block a different way or you run a different way, and you go, Coach, this doesn't feel right. I remember changing my golf grip, and I remember going, this feels so stupid. I do not want to do this. And it takes a lot of swings before finally, now if I put a golf club in my hand, that's the grip that I use. And so it is the same thing, guys. You get 3-4 weeks of practicing the daily, somewhat unscripted prayer, and you start to go, oh, it's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great analogy, hon, to the golf swing, because it feels awkward, but you got this really bad habit that's making you slice, or, whatever, what's that other one?
Hook.
And
Or
so
dub or miss the ball
that's
completely.
what mostly
Whiff.
I do.
Yeah.
But the point is that get past the awkwardness. Give your spouse one of the greatest gifts. I've never heard a couple complain about having to pray once they started and feeling comfortable with it. It's one of the greatest gifts to give to each other. It is sexy. Can I just tell you?
Whoa,
it is sexy.
I don't know if I heard it described that way.
When a man is willing to humble himself before the Lord and pray for his partner, pray for his family, pray for himself, confess to God what he needs to work on, that is just so inspiring. It's so intimate, and it's definitely one of our greatest communication tools.
Well, as you say that, hon, it reminds me that between the couple, they both are reminding each other that God is the authority and not one or the other, meaning either of the spouse. Like when you and I grab hands and we pray, it's a reminder that no, we're going, the old triangle diagram that we use, you and I on the outside corners and God at the top of that. And so it's a reminder that no, we do not have it all right. We do not, but we are seeking him to help get that guidance. So
there you have it. Our 10 rules of engagement for communication when it comes to relating and connecting and communicating with your spouse or significant other. But if you find yourself holding on to unforgiveness or unable to communicate with your spouse, or if you and your spouse, and we talked about this weeks ago, are in a cold war where you haven't really talked for weeks or months, please, get some help. There is hope available. It's not worth just driving along the road with this flat tire, expecting you to be able to get to places easily. So there is a better answer. There's a healthy answer before the two of you.
Yeah. So we hope that the first part of the systems, after you did your assessment in part 1, we hope that part 2 here with communication is helpful to you. If, just like Linda said, if we can help, please reach out, rocksolidfamilies.org. Our office number is 812-576-7625. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to promote our show through just making referrals and saying, hey, Rock Solid could maybe help you guys in this. We appreciate that. Our ultimate goal here is to help serve families and make a stronger community.
So I also want to say one last thing, because communication, sometimes there's something below the surface that is happening that maybe you don't even realize. And so please, if there is unhealed trauma or pain and your spouse keeps triggering it by just saying a word, maybe stepping on a landmine, and he doesn't even realize, or she doesn't even realize that when you mention work or money or whatever, or the good old days, and it sets them off, please, there could be some trauma that has been unhealed and really unsurfaced that is really the communication breakdown. So please, again, get some help. Reach out to us at rocksolidfamilies.org. Reach out to a local pastor, a priest, or a therapist. Get some work for you so that the communication with your partner can be the best it's ever been.
All right. I think that wraps us up. We want to thank Maxwell Construction and Casey's Outdoor Solutions again for sponsoring and supporting the work that we do.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Solid Families podcast, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Rock Solid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200.